Hey guys, welcome back for another video. We got a good one prepared today. What we'll be doing is we'll be looking at our upset picks for week 14 of the 2024 college football season. This is the last week of the regular season. It's finally here. We're going to have the conference championship soon, the playoffs soon. Everyone needs to be on upset alert this week, but there's 6 ranked games that stood out to me where the favored team needs to potentially be on upset alert. Now, I'm not saying they're going to lose, but there's a high probability there. They just need to be preparing themselves and take that game seriously. Make sure to hit that like button. Make sure to subscribe. If you have any comments about these games or anything else, drop them below and I will respond. Every week we go over every single college football game. The top 25 ones, the non-top 25, completely break them down and try to predict the outcome, who's going to win, who's going to lose, what the final score will be. We also touch on the best bets, money lines, spreads, over-unders. If you're a football fan, if you're a sports fan, make sure to hit that like button. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel. So let's go ahead and get started looking at the 6 games that stood out to me of our top 25 games where the favorite team needs to be on upset alert. The very first game we have is on Saturday, November 30th at 12 p.m. Number 15, South Carolina at 8-3 versus number 12, Clemson, sitting at 9-2. Right now, Clemson is the favorite team. They have a 57.1% chance to win this game. They are 2.5-point favorites. The over in here is 49.5. So what's going to happen in this game? This is a pretty interesting game because South Carolina right now is as hot as anyone in the nation. They are 8-3 coming out of the SEC game. They have a chance to get to 9 wins, get a bowl game, potentially get to 10 wins. If a couple things bounce their way this year, they're actually probably a 10-win team right now, potentially competing for the SEC championship and a playoff berth. They almost lost to South Carolina. There was a lot of weird calls that game. Sorry, they almost beat Alabama. There was a couple weird calls that game. They almost beat LSU. Like I said, if a couple things bounce their way, they win both of those games. They were both one-possession losses, but they didn't. But they still have their chance to beat a fellow in-state rivalry here in Clemson. Clemson, year 2 under Riley, the offense looks much, much improved. Dabo still needs to work the portal. He needs to just give it up, work the portal, get some weapons on the outside. But this offense is clicking. Right now, Klubnik's closing in on 2,800 yards, 29 touchdowns, 4 picks. Saller's on the other side. He's throwing well. He's closing in on 2,200 yards, 17 touchdowns, 6 picks. But it's what he can do with his legs, extending plays. That could make the difference in this game, scrambling for first downs. Right now, the Gamecocks are averaging 32.9. They're throwing for 248.8, running for 181.8, very balanced, and they're only giving up 18.2 points a game. Defense travels with you on the road. This is a very deep physical defense, and for Clemson, they're averaging 37.6. They're throwing for 284.9, running for 195.3, and their defense is giving up 22 points a game. They have the number 9 overall roster, according to ESPN. This roster is very deep. They haven't lived up to it statistically wise on the defensive side, but still, you know that talent's there. And if Miami loses this weekend, it's going to be Clemson playing SMU in the ACC championship. So they actually do have a playoff potential berth this weekend. So they want to make sure to keep that on their mind. Right now for South Carolina, they have Sanders at the running back position. They have Simon. And for Clemson, they have Moffa closing in on 1,100 yards. And they have Williams. So who do I think is going to win this game? I'm going to go with the plus 2.5. I have South Carolina pulling off the win, winning it 28-24. But just to be honest, I could see this game going either way. I would not be surprised at all if Clemson pulls out the win, but I think the Gamecocks are due to get a win versus Clemson. And then our next game we're taking a look at 3:30 p.m. on ABC, 5-6 Auburn versus 8-3 Alabama right now, coming in at 14. Now, I'm not saying Auburn is going to beat Alabama, but look, let's be honest. After what happened to Alabama this past weekend, you better not overlook this game. Alabama's already lost to 2 unranked teams currently. They've lost to Vanderbilt. They've lost to Oklahoma. They were like 15-point favorites versus Oklahoma, and they lost by 20-something points. That's a 30-something point swing here. They better take this game seriously, or they will lose this one. Right now, they have an 87.7% chance to win this game. They are 11.5-point favorites. The over in here is 52.5. Right now, Auburn, coming off that massive win versus the Aggies. We did pick them to beat the Aggies, so we were not surprised. They showed what they can do when they have a clean game. They haven't had a clean game for a long time. Peyton Thorne's had a lot of turnovers. They've been unable to punch the ball in. but their defense played well, and the offense kept from getting a turnover. Right now, Peyton Thorne, he showed what he can do with his legs. He can scramble. He can get those first downs. Bama's been known to give up a lot of yardage to mobile quarterbacks. Thorne's closing in on 2,500 yards, 20 touchdowns, 8 picks. They're averaging 29 points a game, throwing for 274.7, running for 171.6, giving up 20.7 points a game. This is a very physical defense. If they're on, don't forget what Auburn did to Alabama last year. They almost beat Alabama, knocked them out of playoff contention last season, but things went Auburn's way. Every game they're leading, and then at the very end, some weird play happens and they lose the game. That could potentially happen here, but Alabama needs to make sure they rebound from that pathetic performance versus Oklahoma, where they only were able to muster a field goal versus Oklahoma. That's not acceptable. Right now, Milroe closing in on 2,400 yards, 15 touchdowns, 9 picks. He needs to get those turnovers down. He's throwing way too many picks second half. They're averaging 36.2. Throwing for 250.8, running for 181, giving up 17.5 points a game, which is good for your normal team, but usually a Bama defense is sub 15, but you'll still take that 17.5. For Auburn, they have Jaquez Hunter closing in on 1,200 yards on the ground. They can get the physical running game going. They will be able to probably run on Alabama. Alabama has not been dominating the trenches like they have in previous seasons, and they have Lambert Smith at receiver closing in on 900. He's the guy that makes the big catches in the big-time moments. Third and long, look for Lambert Smith. And for Alabama, Milroe's also the leading rusher, 615 rushing yards. That's fine and everything, but he should not be your leading rusher. He should not be your primary weapon. Too much of the offense is geared around Milroe. Someone needs to step up in the run game, open up those running lanes, keep Milroe from having to scrambling the ball 15 to 20 times a game. That's not going to cut it, especially if Alabama was to make the playoffs this season. That's not a good enough offensively focused team, and they have Ryan Williams, the stud freshman, at the receiver position. Right now, Alabama, you're 8-3. You might get to 9-3 here. You're probably not making the playoffs. To me, you should not make the playoffs with your current record, unless there's complete chaos this weekend, which is always possible. A bunch of favorite teams could lose, and Bama could find their way in the playoffs. So what's going to happen this game? I have Alabama getting things back on track, but I think this game is going to be close first half. Bama pulls away second half. They win this one 35-23. And then an ACC matchup on ESPN at 3:30 p.m. Number 6, Miami at 10-1 versus Syracuse sitting at 8-3. Do not sleep on Syracuse. This is an offense that can score, and they love to test you vertically down the field. Right now, the Hurricanes have a 81.7% chance to win this game. They are 10.5-point favorites. The over in here is 67.5. This is going to be an interesting game. This is the two highest scoring passing teams in the nation right now, but Miami still leads the nation in points per game. They are the leading offense right now. Cameron Ward is a Heisman hopeful. If he wins this game, he's just adding to his stats here. He's adding to his Heisman stud potential, and then Miami would be facing SMU in the ACC championship game. If the Orange win this game, they knock Miami out, and then you set up Clemson in the ACC championship game versus SMU. Miami would probably also get knocked out of the potential for the playoffs. Miami wants to win this game. Worst case scenario, if they do lose to SMU in the ACC championship, they still have a shot to make the playoffs, but they want to win the ACC. They want that bye week. They want to make the playoffs. Right now, Cameron Ward closing in on 3,800 yards, 34 touchdowns, 7 picks, putting up video game numbers so far this season, leading the nation in touchdowns. They're averaging 44.7 points a game. That's number 1 in the country. They're throwing for 373. That's number 2 passing team. Number 1 is the Syracuse Orange. They're running for 181.3. They're giving up 22.3 points a game. Their biggest weakness is their secondary. Bad tackling, bad angles, and now you're facing a pass-happy, they love to throw the ball offense. That's where you can see why there's massive upset alert potential here, because Miami's going to have to stop the throwing game. Right now, Kyle McCord closing in on 4,000 yards, 26 touchdowns, 12 picks. That's the thing. Will he have one of his usual games when he has a pretty good game, 3 to 4 touchdowns, 1 pick, or will he have one of those 1 touchdown, 3 to 4 pick games? That's where Miami's D-line could potentially come in. Can they get enough pressure on Kyle McCord to force him into errant throws, thus forcing him into a couple turnovers? They're averaging 31.7, throwing for 381.4, and running for 92.5, giving up 27.8 points a game. They don't have a great defense. Miami's licking their chops right now. They want to be able to get that vertical passing game going, but we know what Miami does. They own the second half. That big offensive line starts to lean on you. You have to compete with Miami, not for 1, 2, 3, but 4 quarters of football. You might be able to keep them down first half, but that offensive line starts to take effect second half. Once your defensive line starts getting tired, that's where Miami runs up their big scores in the second half of games. They have Damon Martinez, Fletcher, Lyle, Allen, Restrepo, George, Horton, Arroyo Williams. So many weapons on the offensive side. And for Syracuse, a very talented wide receiver core. They have Allen at running back. They have Meeks. I have Miami pulling out the win here, winning this one 42-28, but I think it's going to be one of those typical games where the game's very close, and then Miami just explodes with points second half, and they do make the ACC Championship game to play SMU. And then another one of our SEC matchups at 3:30 p.m. on the SEC Network. 6-5 Arkansas versus number 21 Mizzou, 8-3. Right now, Mizzou has a 66.7% chance to win this game. They are 3.5-point favorites. The over here is 54.5. Mizzou's a veteran squad here. A lot of this is going to come down to what's the health status of Cook. Will they be able to have all of their veterans on the field? And Arkansas, if you sleep on Arkansas, you will lose. Just as Tennessee, this is a very scrappy team. It all comes down to the turnovers for Green. Is he able to play a clean game? Is he able to throw, hit his targets, keep those turnovers down? He's closing on 2,600 yards, 13 touchdowns, 9 picks. So you can see how the turnovers have been a problem sometimes. But when they play clean, this is a very physical, high-scoring team. They do have a physical defense that shows up some games, doesn't show up some games. But Sam Pittman, to me, he's kind of took himself off the hot seat somewhat this season, and Bobby Petrino's calling plays. Bobby knows how to call plays depending on the opponent he's facing across the field. You know he's going to be dialing things up. Right now, Cook, he's closing in on 2,100 yards, 9 touchdowns, 2 picks. Arkansas, they're averaging 31.1. Throwing for 292.9, running for 185.1, very balanced, almost 500 yards of offense in the SEC. They're giving up 24.6 points a game. And for Mizzou, they're averaging 29.2, throwing for 235, running for 168.7. They're averaging 20 points a game. Very deep team. They have Noel, Weiss Jr., Burden, who might be the number 1 wide receiver pick in the NFL draft. And for Arkansas, they have Jackson closing on 800 yards. They have Armstrong closing in on 1,100 yards. They have the offense to make this game close. They have the offense to put this on upset alert. But I have Mizzou winning a close one, a kind of higher scoring shoot-'em-out game. Last game of the year, throw everything you have in this game. They win this one 33-27. And then our second to last game at 7:30 p.m. on ABC. Number 3, Texas Longhorns, 10-1 versus number 20, the Aggies, 8-3, coming off that loss to Auburn. Like I mentioned, we did have them losing to Auburn. You might be saying, this should not be an upset alert game. Well, after last week, you definitely have to put it up there. This is one of the best rivalries in all of college football. These teams have not played since 2011. There's massive build-up here. It's in College Station. Anything can happen in this game. Throw the records out, and the Aggies still technically have something to play for. They only have 2 conference losses here. If they beat Texas, they would jump Texas to probably be playing the Georgia Bulldogs in the SEC Championship. Now, if Texas wins, they've cemented it. They will be going to the SEC Championship. Right now, Texas, they are 6-point favorites. The over in here is 48.5. They're going to be led by Quinn Ewers, who's pretty banged up after last weekend. But as of right now, he's going to be starting this game, and they're going to need the best version of Quinn Ewers. They want him getting hot going into the SEC Championship. They want that rematch with Georgia. It's hard to beat a good team twice. They want Ewers to make up for that first game and for that offense to be riding hot right now. He's closing on 2,100 yards, 23 touchdowns, 6 picks. This is the number 4 overall roster according to ESPN. They are loaded on both sides of the ball. Yes, they haven't really played anyone this season. You can't help your schedule. All you can do is beat the crap out of the teams you're playing. Right now, they're averaging 36.5. They're throwing for 292.3, running for 169.6, only giving up 12.1 points a game. That is a top 5 statistical defense, almost number 1 in the nation. That defensive line lost a lot of starters from last season to the NFL, but they've replaced them just fine. And on the other side, you have Reed, the mobile quarterback who took over for Wegman. He's closing in on 1,500 yards, 12 touchdowns, 3 picks. He has to play a clean game here. He's got to get his legs going, scrambling for first downs. He's going to be under pressure. Play smart. Don't force the ball. Take what the defense gives you. If you see those routes on the ground, take them. Scramble for first downs. Right now, the Aggies is a Mike Elko team. They play physical. They play defense. They're averaging 32.5. throwing for 219, running for 208.7. This is a very physical running downhill team. They're giving up 21.5. The biggest loss for them is they lost Moss for the season. That's a massive loss there. So the team and company, the running back room and co, they're going to have to step up here. But at least you know that you have a quarterback who can scramble if he's forced to. This is the game to do it. Last regular season game, and they have Thomas. So who do I have winning this one? I have Texas hanging on, but I have this being a very physical line of scrimmage game. This game is going to be decided in the trenches. Who has the strength at the line of scrimmage? I have Texas winning this one 28-20. And then our final game where the team needs to be on upset alert. On Fox at 7:30 p.m., we have Kansas State coming in here at 8-3. They're number 24 versus number 18 Iowa State 9-2. You don't want to sleep on Iowa State here. This is a very competitive team, but this is a two team that they both want to dominate the line of scrimmage. They both want to play the same type of football. Right now it's Iowa State 3-point favorites. The over here is 51.5 for K-State. They have Avery Johnson, the highest recruited player in Kansas State history. He's closing in on 2,300 yards passing, 19 touchdowns, 9 picks. He has 6 rushing touchdowns. When he's on, he can throw the ball, but it's what he can do with his legs extending plays. And when he runs with purpose, picks up massive yardage every single scramble. And for Iowa State, they have Becht. He's closing in on 2,900 yards, 18 touchdowns, 8 picks. One of the better quarterbacks they've had in some time. This is a Matt Campbell team. They love to run the ball. They love to play action, but they love physical line of scrimmage defense. Right now, Kansas State, they're averaging 30.5, throwing for 219.3, running for 210, one of the better rushing teams in the nation, quite possibly the best rushing team in the Big 12, and they are giving up 21.3 points a game. The big issue for them is their secondary. They give up 252.5 passing yards per game, one of the more worse secondaries in the nation right now. There's going to be guys running wide open down there. You can throw on them, but they do have a physical run defense. Right now, they're only giving up 108.4 on the ground. You can throw on them, but it's hard to run on them. And for Iowa State, they're averaging 31.4, throwing for 275.8. So you have a team that gives up a lot of passing yards versus a team that loves to push the ball vertically down the field. They're running for 162.5. They're only giving up 19.5 points a game. They might be the best defense in the Big 12. Their weakness is they give up 176.4 yards on the ground. That is a really bad rush defense for a team that prides itself on the trenches. They do have a very deep defensive line. They get pressure on quarterbacks, but for some reason this season they've been getting gashed on the ground. Kansas State, one of the better rushing teams in the nation. So you have one team that gives up passing yards playing a team that can pass, and then you have one team that gives up rushing yards playing a team that loves to rush. It's strength on strength. Who's going to dominate the most and get the win? Looking at the playmakers, K-State, just to aid in the running game, they have DJ Giddens. He's a top 10, top 5 national running back. He's closing in on 1,300 yards on the ground. And for those third and long situations, you have Brown at wide receiver. He always makes catches in the big-time moments. And for Iowa State, they have Hansen, they have Higgins. Both teams have good weapons. This is going to be a close game. Iowa State still has a shot to make the Big 12 championship, especially if they win this game. They'd only have 2 conference losses. I'm going out on a ledge here because to me this game's a 50-50 pick. I would not be surprised who wins this game, but I have Kansas State pulling off the win, winning this one 30-27. So I'm going to go with that +3. That's our breakdown. That's our predictions for just 6 top 25 games that stood out to me where the favorite team needs to be on upset alert. Make sure to hit that like button. Make sure to subscribe. If you have any comments, please drop them below and I will respond. Thank you.